tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They're hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to say, talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit.
There's a big appeal that's hit him on the pad. He's out. Lions gone. New South Wales are 9 down. Onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car. Oh, I think it's hit a car. What a way to bring up your 50.
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
Yeah, pink ball as well going into next week. It's good to secure it before that. That they always kind of seem to throw up a little bit. It's something different. But yeah, no, it's dream start really. 2 from 2 gets us into the cycle. And yeah, played some really good cricket.
Well, that was Pat Cummins after Australia retained the Frank Worrell Trophy, winning in Grenada to go 2-0 up in the series. Welcome back to Cricket Unfiltered. I'm Menners, and apologies on Monday and Tuesday. I was a bit crook, so I couldn't record a little episode wrapping up the final day of the test. So we'll do it all tonight. Joining me is Damien Watson, who has been commentating all day on the Australia A v Sri Lanka A one-day game. Damien, how you going?
I'm good, Menners. Hope you're feeling better, by the way. Hope it's nothing too life-threatening.
No, it wasn't anything. It just knocked me out for a couple of days, but I'm back into it today. But yeah, I just couldn't do it. I tried to record, but couldn't do it. But ready to talk about it all tonight. We have got the second test wrap, the third test preview, lots of cricket news. We're also going to pick Damien's brains for some insights into what's going on in that Australia A camp, because they might need a few of those players in the top order pretty soon. But before we get into all that, I've also got a Mad Menace for you, so stay tuned. I'm not happy about something. But let's start with the big declaration this week, because I want to get Damien's opinion on this. Ian Mulder, the stand-in South African skipper, was on 367 not out of just 334 deliveries. He was just so close to breaking Brian Lara's record of 400 not out, the highest test score in history. They had plenty of time left in the game, but Mulder declared and afterwards said it was because he wanted to give his team every chance of winning, and he thought it was fitting that a legend like Lara had that record. Now, Damien, did Mulder do the right thing, or did he throw away a golden opportunity to give South Africa this prized record of the highest individual test score?
In my opinion, I thought he did the wrong thing in the game situation, given there was plenty of time and the fact that he was scoring in such a freewheeling way, Menners. Surely another 24 runs probably would have taken only another 20 minutes. Like, would it really have made a difference? I understand if the game situation was different, when, you hark back to that famous Ashes test match in 95 minutes where Graham Hick was left 98 not out and Atherton called them in. But that was because of the game situation. It required it. They didn't leave enough time to bowl Australia out. That proved costly. But in that situation, surely, I reckon there'd be a little bit of consternation about that. And isn't it interesting how he said, it's fitting that Brian Lara still holds the record? Why would you deny your teammate a chance to break that record? I'm sure, man. I'm sure
he denied him. He denied himself. He declared on himself. That's the thing. He was the skipper. He did a Mark Taylor. He declared on himself.
I don't know. I think. Look, it's his decision, I suppose. So,
I just think that's terrible because, it's not terrible, but he should have gone for the record. I mean, he had the opportunity. South Africa still won the game with plenty of time to spare. I don't think you can say it's not a fitting record, because when Matt Hayden was smashing around Zimbabwe and breaking Brian Lara's record when Hayden made 380, Australia really wasn't going, it was against Zimbabwe. A record's a record. So I just think he should have done it, but I'm not surprised. It's a typical South African decision, isn't it, Damien? Just to be inside of number one spot, and just this time they actually gave it away. But he finished in the fifth highest score in Test cricket, 367 not out of 334 balls. Joe Warden above him, 374. Lara 375, Hayden 380, and then Lara again 400 not out. So he's still etched in history, and he went past Gary Sober's record of 365 not out, and that was such a big record when we were growing up, Damien, that because Sobers held that record for over 36 years until Brian Lara broke the record in 1994. I don't know if you remember that, and Sobers came onto the field to congratulate Lara. So yeah, still, a fair bit of history from Mulder, but yeah, he could have had so much more.
I think so. To deny himself of a record like that, I think he's cheating himself, Menners, in that situation. Because, okay, I understand the sentiment and everything. I do wonder whether he'll regret it a little bit later on. I mean, you get yourself into that position, you're entitled to, if the game situation applies, you're entitled to break the record.
Oh, he would have been faded in South Africa too. All right, well, let's get into all the cricket headlines brought to you by Piccolo Podcasts, and let's wrap up the second test. So Australia won by 133 runs. On that fourth day, Australia only added 22 runs, leaving West Indies 277 to win the match and level the series. They were all out for 143. Starc, the best figures, 3 for 24. Lyon, 3 for 42. Josh Hazelwood, 2 for 33. They retain the Frank Worrell trophy, which they've held since 1995. In that time, there's been 14 series, 12 won by Australia, 2 drawn, 1 in 1999 and 1 last year. And Damien, if you told me in 1995 when Australia regained the trophy in the West Indies that we would hold it for 30 years, I would not have believed you. You got me?
I got you now. It just blacked out. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
No, that's
maybe
right.
there is a bit of a storm here, man.
Could be my internet.
There is a bit of a storm hitting Melbourne at the moment, so that's probably why. My apologies in that regard.
That's all right. I was just saying that if you told me in 1995 when Australia regained the Frank Worrell trophy that would hold it for another 30 years, I wouldn't have believed you. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is, but I think it speaks to the lack of test cricketing presence in the West Indies. What disappointed me, man, is there wasn't much of a crowd there at all, but I suppose that's just symptomatic, and we see it in South Africa as well. It's sort of symptomatic of where test cricket is in some of those nations. I think it's a little bit different in the West Indies because I think people have ties with their various countries as opposed to the whole region, and maybe that has something to do with it. But I think, too, there's a proliferation of other sports, and maybe that's why there's not as much interest in Test cricket. But look, Australia, they'd be happy. They got what they obviously came to do. Has it been as convincing as everyone thought? I don't think so, even though the margins probably reflect that. There have been times where the Windies have challenged them, particularly early on. They just can't sustain that level of intensity throughout the Test match.
Absolutely. And they've been so bad in those two fourth innings chases. They sort of kept with Australia. They did let us get away in both our second innings, but not crazy. And a chase of 277, Australia's always going to be heavy favourites. But in the two fourth innings chases, the West Indies have been hopeless. Hardly batting above 30 overs in the first and second test. So Australia's bowling just too good. In the second test, a couple of highlights. The Pat Cummins ball on the final day to get Brandon King was an absolute beauty. A real Jaffa, reminded me of the delivery to get Joe Root in 2019. And yeah, Australia had started the day 254 in front. They added 22, and then the West Indies were 4 for 33 at lunch. So it was all over very quickly on that final day. Player of the match was Alex Carey. He scored 63 and 30 in the match, a vital 63 in the first innings, a great knock. And, I was just putting his record up against that of Brad Haddon's. And, everyone talks about what a good player Brad Haddon was. Well, in 66 tests, he averaged 33 with the bat with 400s and 18 50s. In 42 test matches, Alex Carey is averaging 35 and a half with 200s and 11 50s. So, Damien, that's the second best average by an Australian wicketkeeper batsman behind Adam Gilchrist. It's ahead of Haddon, Ian Healy, Rod Marsh, all those great players. Carey's putting together quite a CV for himself. And I have to say that he's maybe over exceeded what I thought his top level was. And, I think Josh Inglis is a great player, but I think if you put him in there, Josh Inglis is not going to do any better than this, or hard to imagine him doing much better than this. So, kudos to Carey.
I think so, and it's interesting, isn't it, with Alex Carey? I think he's well liked by the Australian public, but is he spoken about and featured in the same way as other top Australian keeper batsmen over the journey? And I know we've had a high standard, but probably not. And I don't know if that's the New South Wales effect of Brad Haddon stepping in there, Metters, given how well he's featured. And I know he'd been playing for a long period of time and had to bide his time, Haddon, and was in the Australian setup for a long period of time. So I think Carey will get his just rewards as time goes on in terms of the way people reflect on his record, because I enjoy watching him play, and he's happy to take the game on as well. And from all reports, a good bloke too. So I think you make some good points there in the way he should be featured.
It's a huge summer for him as well, this Ashes, obviously on the back of the controversial 23 Ashes, but also, his performance in this Ashes will, I think, define a way of a lot of Australian fans think about him. I mean, you look at Brad Haddon, when he smashed around England in the 2013, 2014 summer, he really, he cast himself as a legendary figure. And if Carey can do something like that this summer after, all the harassment he took after the Bairstow stumping, then I think he will etch himself into folklore. So yeah, great stuff for Carey. Also for Australia, good test for Bo Webster, who made 60 in the first innings. Cameron Green with a bounce back half century, 52 in the second innings. He's definitely not a number 3 in my opinion, but still a good player and a test player, and good to see him in the runs. Steve Smith, a majestic 71 in the second innings. Really tough conditions, and he got Australia well in front. And of course, the bowlers exceptional as ever, and we're going to talk about some of them soon. But the top order is still a mystery, Damien, and we'll come to some comments from Andrew McDonald. He said that he spoke after the Test match and said that the top order is likely unchanged for the upcoming Test. But this is what he said about Usman Khawaja. I think the way Usman's got out over his whole career has been very similar. He's a guy who knows his game. He's got a clear method. It's really repeatable. His preparation's repeatable. And I said it's been tricky for top order players with the swinging Duke's ball. Now, Damien, I'm just getting sick of these excuses for the top order. I don't think it's good enough for the coaches to keep doing this time after time after time, making excuses for everybody, but especially Usman Khawaja. During the summer, he was getting boomerad. Now it's the Duke's ball. I mean, I just want an opener that even looks like they're going to score runs.
They're using the pink Duke's ball, aren't they, for the third Test too, aren't they?
They are.
It's going to be interesting to see how he contends with that. And there's the added element, obviously, of the pink ball. Certain conditions, he probably will struggle. But, yeah, I don't think he could really point to the ball and say that that's the main issue if it's over a long-lasting period of time. And I think it's more than that. I think we all know that, don't we?
Absolutely. And I'm fully in now that they have to be prepared to drop him for the Ashes. I heard Crash on SEN talking to Tom Morris saying he thinks they'll stick with him to start the Ashes. I don't think that's the right call. I think you've got to pick a good Shield opener in form. Bad luck bad luck. It would be great to have done this a few tests ago, but you've left yourself right till the last minute. You just cannot take in a 39-year-old who's lost it against fast bowling. He's denying it. The coaches are denying it, but everybody can see it. And Damien, and this is what concerns me. Khawaja was kind of on a slow decline, but we've seen this before with great players. Now he's hit the sharp decline phase. And basically, he scored 232 on a feather bed in Sri Lanka. Apart from that, he's on the way down, and Australia need to get rid of him. And I would drop him for the third test. I would make Marnus open in the third test and say to Khawaja, your career's done. At least give Marnus one test, because you never know, they might need him in the Ashes. But Khawaja's not the answer. And we'll get to Constas, because Andrew McDonald said that he thinks the first 4 rounds of Shield cricket will draw a better connection to the Ashes than what we're seeing here. There's a great opportunity in domestic cricket at the start of the season, and there always, as there always is, leading into any test series. And, I think Constas will, hopefully score some runs in this third test. But I think it'll be on to him to score runs in the early Shield rounds to be anywhere near a test spot. So, it really is going to be, a bit of a bat off leading into the Ashes.
That's right. And I think you've got to put more emphasis on the bat off as well, Menners, as opposed to this upcoming test, because it's somewhat of a dead rubber, isn't it? And I know there's the World Test Championship rankings to take into consideration, but I think there'll be more intensity, pressure and scrutiny as well around that time, and on Australian soil as well. I think more emphasis will be placed on how players will perform at the start of domestic summer. It's interesting as well, Australia A are going to be touring India. They're going to play a couple of 4-day matches against India A, and that's going to be interesting too, how they adapt to the Lucknow conditions. So that's going to be assessed as well, I think, in terms of the form lines coming in. So I think it's a good opportunity. Not many, aside from Constas, who probably at the start of the domestic summer wasn't really favoured to take that opening spot. He came in and performed well at the right time. That opportunity is going to come up again now, isn't it, for a lot of these players, whether it's a seasoned player like Renshaw or Harris or Bancroft, or whether it's someone young coming through. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think it'll all depend on how it all goes at the start of the domestic summer.
Yeah, absolutely. So huge opportunity, but I'm firmly now that they need to move on from Khawaja. Make a tough decision. They need to start making a few really tough decisions. They've resisted it, but now's the time. The Ashes are on the horizon, and performances just... There's no reason Khawaja is going to come back. So it's time to move on. Now, looking at that third test, you're right, it's a day-night test being played in Sabina Park. My understanding is that it's not completely confirmed yet that the ICC will be inspecting the ground basically today or tomorrow, when the ICC caravan moves from Grenada to Jamaica, where Sabina Park is. If the ICC deems that the lights aren't good enough, then they will play a day test, which would suck for us Aussies, Damien, because the time of the day-night test will be much better, because it'll start, around 3:34 our time. So you'll be able to get up, and have your breakfast and watch the last 2 sessions. Pat Cummins says he hasn't seen any of these pink Dukes balls yet. They haven't been able to get their hands on any. And, I read an article from Dan Cherney that Dukes have only made about 96 of these balls for practice and the matches. So I don't know when they're going to get hold of them, but they're going to be in pretty short supply.
Just for context, Menners, so the Dukes are heavier, aren't they, compared to the Kookaburra types, which are a little bit softer?
Yeah, I was reading about it today, and it seems to be dyed pink instead of a pink lacquer that they use on the Kookaburra. But there's not many games with the Pinks Dukes ball. England used it for a test against the West Indies a few years ago, maybe back in 2017, and hasn't really been used since. And Australia have never played an away day-night test. But, Andrew McDonald said, look, there'll be unlikely to be changes for the third test. And, we know how well Australia does in Australia in pink ball test matches. So I guess there's no reason to assume we wouldn't do otherwise away. So the big thing, though, will be we've got our trump card, and Mitchell Starc has an incredible record with the pink ball, but it's also his 100th test. And so he will play his 100th test. He's the second Australian fast bowler behind Glenn McGrath and the 16th Australian in total. And not only will it be his 100 tests, but he needs 5 wickets for 400 test wickets. So, Damien, originally this test match would have been the first test of the Ashes, because originally this was going to be a 2-test series versus the West Indies, but they added the third test, which means he plays the third test in Jamaica, not at Perth Stadium for the opening Ashes test. I mean, there's been commentary that it's a shame he's not doing it in Australia, but I saw Alyssa Healy on her podcast said that, he's just happy to do it anywhere. And, this is just such a huge accomplishment for a fast bowler. You never see it, Damien, and it's a real testament to his commitment to the Australian cause. He's given up a lot of short form cricket. He's a very understated character, but to play 100 test matches, and when you think of how many IPLs he's given up, he's to be greatly admired.
Absolutely. And from all accounts, he's a pretty shy sort of character, not necessarily behind the scenes, but you don't hear him too much in the media, do you? So it's interesting, isn't it, in the sense that it probably is reflective of the fact that he doesn't care where the 100th test match is played. I don't think he's the type that, whilst he'll appreciate the milestone, I don't think he puts that much emphasis on it, to be honest. But it'd be good serendipity, wouldn't it, if he could get to 400 within the 100th test match. But we'll see what happens. One of the great fast bowlers we've seen in history for Australia. I mean, I know there's a big list, but the record just stands up, doesn't it? You've got to look at the statistics.
Yeah, absolutely. And and he will swing this pink ball around corners. You said that he is more outspoken behind the scenes, but he's a winner. You can't take it away from him. In white ball cricket and in test cricket, he's an out-and-out winner, and he's done it all around the world. He's been our weapon in subcontinental conditions with the reverse swing. He gets wickets. How often does he get a wicket in the first over?
Yeah.
And he joins an illustrious list. Hayden, Taylor, Langer, Boone, Warner, Clark, Smith, Healy, McGrath, Mark Waugh, Lyon, Shane Warne, Border, Steve Waugh, Ponting. So he is grouped in with a number of legends, and his durability is amazing. The fact that he's still bowling at 145 kilometers per hour, taking wickets. 35, so he can't have much longer left, but the way he's bowling, it'd be hard to see him going anywhere. And the other thing to look at is Josh Hazlewood is 8 wickets short of 300 test wickets, so you never know. If he has a really good test match, he could do it in this test match, or he could get pretty close leading into the Ashes. All right, we're going to take our first break on Cricket Unfiltered, and then we'll be back to see what's been happening in the Australia A series. You're listening to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I'm Manners. I'm with Damien Watson. We've just gone through the second test and previewed the third test. Now let's look at the Australia A series. And boy, are we lucky, because we've got someone who's been watching every ball of it in commentary. So I've got a few questions for you, Damien. So just for those watching on, Australia A won the series against Sri Lanka A 2-1, securing the series today. Damien could give you a full wrap. He's probably done it about 8 times tonight, but I'm not going to make him do it again. A lot of the hopefuls for the next level were in the runs. Renshaw, Sanger, McSweeney, young Ollie Peake. They all look good. Renshaw probably the standout with 100 and a couple of 50s, but everyone looked good. Sanger a couple of half centuries. So my take, and Sam Elliott, probably the standout bowling performance, took 5 for 14 in the first game. So a couple of questions, Damien. I guess I thought the standard of the Sri Lanka A side was pretty average. Not terrible, but I thought you got to take that into account when looking at these performances.
I think you do, but I think it's more so due to the fact they're not really accustomed to those conditions. There was a fair bit of bounce on that pitch at Marara earlier today and also throughout the series as well. And I think they struggle with the short pitch deliveries. They're not really accustomed to that, some of the batsmen in particular. A couple of rearguard actions. I thought Mashara had a couple of good moments with the bat, but no one really stood out making big scores. I know they had a reasonable game in game number 2 where they managed to scrounge out 294, I think, from memory for their total, and managed to win that game as well against all expectations. So they were competitive enough, men, as certainly in game number 2. But you would say out of the 3 days, 2.5 of the days were dominated by Australia A over Sri Lanka A. So I think it's an element of the fact that they couldn't really adapt to the conditions. It's going to take a long time for them to adapt to those type of conditions.
So tell me, you got to see Renshaw and Sanger and McSweeney all up close. How did they look? Who impressed you?
Matt Renshaw, for me, was the most consistent. He was on the attack from the word go. Didn't really take him too much time to get into his work. He was very good in terms of his shot selection. He could smash them down the ground, hit a number of big sixes. He likes hooking them down the ground or either over mid-wicket or even over the covers on a couple of occasions as well. He's a big hitter, a clean striker of the ball in particular. They were all very convincing strokes. He scored a century, obviously, in game 2 in a losing cause, and then the 80. He should have got 100 in game 1. He had a silly shot when he was trying to ramp it over the keeper's head, and it went straight up in the air. He should have made 100, and he managed to make a pretty quick fire half century earlier today as well. He was easily the most consistent. I thought with Jason Sanger, he's a player, obviously, that's had a big 12 months. Obviously, we saw what happened in the Shield final. He's a good leader. He's going to lead the Australia A 4-day team, so the longer format team. Matt Renshaw was a skipper for the 1-day team. I think with Sanger in game 1, took a little bit of time to get into his work. He had a good over on, I think it was against Chamindu Wickramasinghe, smashed him all around the ground, and that proved to be an eye-opener for him to get into his work. Didn't convert it into a big score in game 1, but still managed to get a half century. I thought he was a lot better today when he was obviously there basically almost through to the end, right through to the end from when he came at the crease in Australia A's chase. They were able to chase down the total pretty convincingly. He could have potentially made 100 if the Sri Lanka A score was a lot bigger. So I think he's progressively improved as the series has gone on. McSweeney has had a couple of good moments, but also a couple of poor moments, a couple of soft dismissals, manners. So he still needs to improve, I think, from my perspective. He wasn't necessarily banging down the door. Ollie Peaker's one to watch, given he has very little first-class experience. He's a player, maybe a bit like Constance. He's got that brash, youthful exuberance, can play ramp shots on various occasions. He was really impressive in game 1, scoring a nice half-century in quick-fire fashion.
Yeah, well, the bat-off starts now. I mean, I said it'll be in the Shield, but it can start now. I mean, if someone like Renshaw or Sanger, or we'll talk about Curtis Patterson, who's going to be playing in the 4-day games, if they can go on a run in this series, then in that India A series, then into the Shield, it could be a pretty compelling case for the selectors to have to pick them. So, yeah, the Australia A is playing 2 4-day games. You commentating on them, Damien?
Yeah, looking forward to it, and looking forward to seeing how Curtis Patterson performs as well. He's a player that has had a bit of a renaissance over the last 12 months, so we'll see if he gets in the runs in the upcoming matches, and particularly in those conditions. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the longer format, how the wicket plays, because I haven't seen a lot of this type of level of cricket in Darwin for a long period of time.
Well, Curtis Patterson will be coming on the podcast in the next couple of days, so listen out for that one and tune in to when's the first one start? When are you back on?
Sunday. This Sunday will start from, I think it's 10:30 Eastern Standard Time on KO Sports.
Yep, and the CA Live app, I'm sure.
Yep.
So I've been enjoying it. So tune in. It's been great to have some winter cricket. All right. Now to the other big test match over the last week. India beat England in the second test. They leveled the series. They won by 336 runs. An incredible win. They left Jasper Bumrah out of the game. They rested him after going 1-0 down in the series. Just a huge risk. And then they ended up going on to win the game. Incredible stuff. So they they win on the back of Shubman Gill making 269 and 161. An incredible incredible pair of captains knocks. It is the second highest Test match run aggregate ever. He scored 430 runs in the game, behind Graham Gooch's 456. And then third is Mark Taylor with 426 from that famous game in Peshawar when he made 334 and 92. Sangakkara fourth and with 319 and 105. And then fifth, Brian Lara with 400 not out in one innings. So, but yeah, second on that record. And then out of nowhere, Akash Deep took 10 wickets. It includes his first 5 for in Test cricket. He took 6 for 99 in the second innings, 10 for 187 for the match. He had 15 Test wickets beforehand. He almost doubled it in one match, and he single-handedly bowled India back into this series. They didn't have much in the bowling. India took a big gamble. They selected a lot of all-rounders, and Deep did it. So great win, Damien. But what stuck out to me was England were 5 for 84. And then Harry Brook, the new number 1 Test player in the world, and Jamie Smith, their version of Alex Carey. He's already scored 2 Test centuries in a blink of an eye. They put on 303 at a run rate of almost 5 runs per over to take the score from 5 for 84 to 5 for 387. And I'm still nervous about this England side, Damien. I look at the future, and I think it's so important for Australia to get our top order right. It sets the tone. England are a confident side. If we open the door for them, I'm worried they're just going to barrel through. And although India won that game, there were still signs there that England still have this aggressive counter-attacking mode, but also there is weaknesses in their top order that our bowling can expose. So, I guess it is making for a ding-dong series. Like, England's not going to come here and spank us, but they, as I said, they may, be way more competitive than we used to.
I think they'll be more competitive based on what we've seen over the last little period of time. And you've got to remember, they're coming up against decent opposition here, Menners. I know it's on their home turf, but seeing the level of depth they have, I think they've improved in that respect. And I think it's good to see from their point of view the fact that there's players out there that have scope for improvement. They're not necessarily a side that are hanging on to players of yesteryear, are they? They've got that nice cyclical approach. But it'll be interesting to see whether the aggressive approach, as it has in the past sometimes, Menners, has been of their undoing, particularly on Australian soil, because you're coming up against a very decent attack. That's the thing. And I'm not saying, of course, India has a very good attack as well, and they've got good variation. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it stacks up against
Can England do it on wickets where there's a bit of up and down in it, and there's a bit of movement? That they've done it on a lot of flat wickets, but also Australia's batting struggles on wickets with a bit of movement. So it's going to be a really close series, because it'll give assistance to their bowlers, which, although they're not as good as our bowlers, there is also the factor that this England side's faced our bowling a lot. Now it's one thing to have faced them a lot, another thing not to get out, but I still think it's a factor. So, just getting nervous, but that series is a humdinger, India v England. So,
it always is, isn't it? They've been very good in recent times, any England v India clash.
Yeah, very, very good. So, 1-1 going into the next Test match. All right, so here's where I got mad this week, Damien.
Oh, here we go. Mad Menners.
They did it again. They announced the Big Bash schedule. And again, no cricket on Christmas Day, no cricket on Christmas Eve, no cricket for 2 days in the height of summer. What is going on? Again, cricket has just dropped the ball. They've dropped the proverbial cricket ball. They should be playing cricket on Christmas Day. They should be playing cricket on Christmas Eve. This is a travesty. How can this keep going on? There is a golden opportunity for cricket to go in and snap this up. Basketball are already inching into this territory, and it It can't be allowed to go on. This is an injustice. This is robbing the fans of cricket on 2 days when they would love it, when they're at home, nothing to do. Just make it a tradition. In 15 years, cricket on Christmas Day, the Big Bash, it'll be part of their holiday. But they're not doing it, Damien. Again, they've just let this go through to the keeper. It's so frustrating.
Well, one retort I'll give you, Ben, is firstly, are the players on board with cricket on Christmas Day?
No, but they
My
should
first
be. I mean,
question.
if Peter V'landys was running cricket, they'd be playing cricket on Christmas Eve and they'd be playing a triple header on Christmas Day. The AFL would be playing cricket on Christmas Day by now. I mean, this is just leaving millions of dollars on the table. I mean, they're always complaining they need more money for cricket. Well, here's your golden goose. I mean, this could be such a valuable fixture in years to come. You could build it up into such a tradition. The TV ratings would be huge. This could be, it could be almost be like a mini, BBL final in the middle of the season, because it's just like a showpiece event. You get two big teams playing. It's just frustrating.
They have had cricket on Christmas Eve before, not at night time.
They have, yeah.
Been on during the day. They always used to play in Hobart, if I remember correctly. I
That's
don't know
right.
if it actually did all that well on Christmas Eve, and that's why they perhaps haven't replicated it.
Pissed off. Anyway, I shouldn't have brought it up.
Oh, how about this, Spinners? I mean, can you have one day of the year, though? Surely we can have one day of the year.
No.
We don't. I know it's different. I know it's different in the US where they have NBA and it's a normal thing. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't mind having a day to spend with the family, but I see what you mean, because I think by the time you get to 3-4 o'clock on Christmas Day, everyone's had enough, haven't they? They've done all the planning. They're probably sick of having to clean everything up, etc. They just want to relax, and it's a good time to watch the cricket. But again, I think it's hard but this is the thing. You need the participants to be involved and to buy in. And I think that's
money talks, Damien. Money talks. I mean, they all talk about money. They all want to get paid. It's a revenue
they get paid
share.
enough anyway, don't they, Meadows?
It's a
They don't
revenue
really
share.
want to play Christmas Day.
Don't they want their game to survive? Like, people are busy.
They've got IPL Meadows. They've got all these other things.
Don't they want the kids? This would be a day for the kids. I mean, do it for the kids. Do it for the little Aussie kids.
Kids have got plenty of presents
who need to watch some cricket on Christmas Day. It just frustrates me that every year Australia is so inane.
But would that detract from Boxing Day? Because isn't that part of that's the greatest tradition? You could argue in Australian sport in a way is the.
No, I don't think. I think it would add to it. It'd be the perfect build up. As you say, 4 or 5 o'clock on Christmas Day night, you got a 3-hour Big Bash game. All right. So again,
it probably will happen at some point. If we're being realistic, it's probably going to happen at some point.
Well, it better bloody happen. Friday. Yes. Well, when I'm made CEO of Cricket Australia, if I was, that'd be the first thing I did. Anyway, no real surprises on the BBL schedule. It starts.
What about 2 matches in Geelong, Meadows? Are you surprised by that, given what's happened in recent years?
Yeah, sort of, but not particularly surprised. I think they've got a contract there which they've got to honour, and they did better last year. But there's no real surprise. It starts Sunday, December 14th, finishes January 25th, as we've discussed. Alistair Dobson was on with Tom Morris on SEN, and he was unequivocal on the WBBL and the BBL being separate. He said that the WBBL is the best women's competition. It deserves its own spotlight. It allows more primetime games for TV, which, that's what is, I guess, not talked about, is different to the women's 100. The WBBL stands alone as a valuable TV product. It's one of the top rating sports leagues in the country. So, the Seven Network and Fox, that is a valuable product for them, because, hundreds of thousands of people are still watching it. And also splitting the time of the WBBL and the BBL means you don't drain the resources of the Big Bash clubs. And I've seen this at New South Wales level with the 2 clubs that you need quite a team to get them going. And when they're split, that team can just run the WBBL and then into the BBL. And this summer, the WBBL final is the night before the Big Bash starts. So we've got, that real stretch of about, 3 months of Big Bash cricket, which I can't wait for.
I don't mind that in the sense that it stretches that far. And I wonder if it's going to be it might not be a permanent fixture because we've got the men's test matches coming into it and there's a bit of an overlap, but sometimes they can complement each other, Ben, as if the men's test matches are during the daytime. So it's been forced upon it too, hasn't it? Because we've got the women's one-day World Cup starting.
That's right, yes.
Around the start of October. That's going to obviously push the WBBL back. So, yeah, I see what he means in terms of the TV numbers and it's reflected there. The only thing is, I wish there was a way they could market it well to try and get fans to those games. I think it's been a little bit underwhelming, the attendances for the WBBL. I know it's, ultimately it's not the biggest attended sport in general, cricket, but I reckon they want it to improve a little bit, wouldn't they?
I know there's some frustration from the players about the crowds that there's not quite as many people as attending as they thought there would be, because when the competition started, crowds grew pretty well, and certain fixtures do really well. I know at North Sydney Oval they get good crowds, but clubs have been moving around, and COVID moved the schedule around, and the women's clubs don't have like sort of that designated home ground that some of the men's clubs do. So still a bit of work to do there, but I think overall it's just quite a valuable TV product, and unfortunately that's really where the value is at the moment. In that dead zone where there's not a lot of football. It's after the football seasons. Networks are looking for live
AFLW, isn't it? It's up against the AFLW.
Yeah, that's it. So it's a good time.
Yeah, and obviously you have that national element as well, because unlike the AFL, it's sort of cricket is watched nationally to a great degree. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it's received. But there you go. It looks like they're not going to go down the path of the 100, are they? At least in the short.
So yeah, there'll be no double headers anytime soon for the WBBL and BBL. All right, last thing before we get to Can't Let It Go. So the Major League Cricket is going on. It's on 7+. If you don't know, so you can watch it for free. And it's finals time. And the way the top four finished, Washington Freedom, New South Wales' team were on top, Damien, with 16 points. Texas Super Kings were pipped San Francisco Unicorns into second spot. And then the Unicorns were in third. And Mumbai Indians, New York, got through to the finals on net run rate ahead of the Seattle Orcas. Quite a tight top three and a tight bottom three, but a big gap in between. And then today, the Washington Freedom are through to the final after a rain out in Texas with the Texas Super Kings. Obviously, horrible rains there recently in very tragic circumstances. But Freedom are through to the final, the defending champions, and the Unicorns and Mumbai Indians, New York playoff to then they'll play the Texas Super Kings and then they play the final. But just wanted to share this stat with you, Damien. I was looking on Quick Info and they've got something called Smart Stats. And in baseball, they love their stats. So this is a good one for Major League Cricket. And it has total impact of players. And the top 3 impacted players are all, the top 3 players who made an impact in this series so far are all Australians. Glenn Maxwell is third place with an impact point of 505.91 points and 237 runs and 9 wickets. Matthew Short is in second spot with 542.39 points, and he scored 354 runs and taken 3 wickets. And then leading the way is Mitch Owen with 713.89 points with 313 runs and 14 wickets. So the top 3 most impactful players are all playing for Australia, and they're all going to the West Indies for this 5-match T20 series. So good to see them starring in the US. And I guess, good investment for Channel 7, I hope, in Major League Cricket. I hope it's done well. And, it always helps when Australians are doing well.
That's it. I wonder what sort of numbers they get though, because as I said, it's on a streaming platform, so it is free. So it's interesting to see whether it gets a lot. How's it received globally as well, Manners? Is it getting some sort of traction in the US or not?
I don't know if it's getting much traction in the US, but it's a growing league. It's getting international interest, and I imagine that it'll be doing okay on 7+ because it's on at a good time during the day. And we've seen that with cricket during the summer. If there's cricket on, Aussies do turn it on. So I think it was a smart move by a Major League Cricket with so many Aussies taking part. But anyway, I guess next week we'll probably be able to talk about the champions. So hopefully it'll be my Washington Freedom that do it again. Already Victoria started to tumble down the ladder. So good to see. All right, Damien, can't let it go time. That little bit of cricket news you just can't let go through to the keeper. What's yours?
All right, just the fact, it's not necessarily news, Manners, but I've been following, given I've been covering a bit of Sri Lanka A cricket, I've been following the international team of Sri Lanka. They've been playing against Bangladesh in a one-day series, and I think the Sri Lankans won 2-1 in the end after winning the Test series as well, 1-0, and they've got T20s to come. But no Test cricket for Sri Lanka for 11 months, Manners. There's an 11-month gap after that recent series against Bangladesh. Now, I get they're not a big pulling Test nation or anything like that, but for a cricket-loving nation, I would have thought, if you want to expand Test cricket and want to make it, beyond the realms of just 3 big teams or 4 big teams, surely you give them more Test cricket than that. 11 months. And I think the players would want that as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it just shows how lucky we are in the big 3 that we're privileged and how challenging it is for the smaller nations. We're seeing it firsthand with the West Indies.
It's not great when if we play Sri Lanka again in 2 years' time, they're not going to have a lot of exposure to Test cricket, and they're just going to get worse and worse at that format of the game.
Absolutely. And, do you think there should be a test fund now to top up smaller nations' ability to play Test cricket, give them financial assistance, that maybe some money from ICC tournaments is put aside and places like Sri Lanka and the West Indies these Test series can be funded so they're not losing so much money?
Oh, look, I suppose you got to protect the autonomy to a degree, if that does exist, of cricketing boards around the world, Manners. But it's more just a shame from a Test cricket loving point of view that this is the way it's going, and it's really just being condensed further and further. I don't know. I just think the scheduling could be a little bit better, and I guess it does come down to money to a degree. But I mean, if the ICC push for a Test series to be conducted involving every cricketing nation in a shorter time period than 11 months, surely that can happen, and surely that's achievable.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, my can't let it go is I can't believe it. They're still not playing cricket on Christmas Day. I've been campaigning for this since 2017. I've been trying and trying and trying. I'm doing it for the kids of Australia. I'm doing it for cricket in this country that needs every cent. And year after year, they are shunning Christmas Day cricket. I still can't believe it. Where is the vision? Todd Greenberg, you've been in the job for a few months now. This should have been the first thing you achieved. But no, instead, I'll be sitting there on Christmas Day. I'll be eating some shitty turkey, some cold ham. I'll get some soft pudding for dessert with custard, and then I'll have to watch replays of The Office or something to try and giggle
away.
Watch
the NBL minutes. Watch the NBL.
Well, I will have to watch the NBL. Exactly. And I should be watching the Big Bash. I will watch the NBL to spite the cricket. You know what? And I'm going to walk around the neighborhood. Kids, come on, look at this great sport basketball that are playing. They're playing on Christmas Day just for you.
You should walk past Todd Greenberg next time you see him with a Sydney Kings jumper on, Manners.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
This is what you're missing out on.
Yeah, and then on December 26th, when people should be playing cricket and watching the Boxing Day Test, they'll all be out shooting hoops. They'll be down the local school in the basketball court playing 3-on-3. So it's a travesty. Year on year on year on year, Santa Claus and Christmas win again. All right, Damien.
That's a genuine can't let it go, because you literally raised it earlier in the show.
No. I spoke about it about 4 minutes ago. Well, yeah, because I'm not happy about it. I think it's going to be every can't let it go now until Christmas Day. People can just skip through this segment, like press the +30 because here he goes again. Christmas Day cricket. Yeah. Do you know when I've got 2 children and we never told them about Santa Claus. So I'm just not into Christmas. I just think
What a bit, but a lot of
Christmas
people
Day
are.
should be about cricket, not Santa Claus. That's what it should be about.
Gotta give
They should
thanks.
replace Santa Claus with someone like David Boone. That's
Can't
what
you
they should
spend
do.
a whole day with the family?
Or Merv Hughes would be a great Santa Claus. If you got him on a sober day, you could dress him up like Santa. He'd be perfect.
He'd be better inebriated, I reckon. The Merv, he could go
Well,
well.
you'd have to give him some mouthwash so the kids were just not scared off. All right, Damien's had a long day. I've been sick. I'm getting cooked. Thanks, Damien. So the listeners, well, I can plug it for you. Catch up with Damien on the Australia A v Sri Lanka A match. He'll be commentating there. He's been doing a fantastic job. That starts on Sunday. All the details in the show notes of how to get hold of us and send in your comments. And we'll be back next week for a full episode. Well, and I'll be back during the test match. Actually, this is a day-night test, so I'll be able to do wraps after every day. So thank you and goodbye.